If Republicans would just get out of the damn way, we could get this all done.
Senate Majority Leader Chuck Schumer said senators will vote Wednesday on a Democratic-backed bill opposed by Republicans to suspend the U.S. debt ceiling.
It's so irresponsible.
And implored Senate Republicans to allow Democrats to proceed with a simple majority vote in the evenly divided chamber, rather than a complicated procedure known as budget reconciliation, which Schumer said was unworkable.
We do not have the luxury of using a drawn-out, convoluted, and risky process. We can stop this Republican-manufactured debt ceiling crisis in its tracks, or Republicans can keep driving our country ever closer to the first default in American history.
Moments before Schumer's rebuke, Senate Minority Leader Mitch McConnell repeated his call for Democrats to use the time-consuming reconciliation process, which would require no Republican votes.
They've had plenty of time to execute the debt ceiling increase and have chosen not to do it. We've been down this path before when you did not have divided government, and the party and the majority got the job done.
But Democrats have noted that they joined Republicans to vote to raise the debt limit during the administration of Donald Trump, even though they opposed deep tax cuts that added to the debt. Nevertheless, McConnell said members of his party would block Wednesday's vote, as they have already done twice, part of their strategy to distract Democrats from their negotiations over President Joe Biden's ambitious social spending agenda ahead of the 2022 congressional elections. But in the meantime, the country inched closer to what would be an unprecedented and unnecessary default, which analysts warn would roil the global financial system, raise borrowing costs for Americans, and eliminate millions of U.S. jobs.
The U.S. Justice Department has launched a new inquiry into the FBI's botched handling of its sex abuse investigation into disgraced former USA Gymnastics doctor Larry Nassar, after previously declining to prosecute the agents involved. The news comes just weeks after star gymnasts, including Simone Biles and 3 other Olympic athletes, provided searing testimony at a Senate hearing, where they blasted the FBI for failing to properly investigate abuse they suffered under Nassar's care.
I blame Larry Nassar, and I also blame an entire system that enabled and perpetrated his abuse.
During that hearing, Olympic gymnast Michaela Maroney told lawmakers she felt betrayed by FBI agents after they failed to investigate Nassar's crimes, despite her telling them he had sexually abused her.
They chose to lie about what I said and protect a serial child molester.
The testimony prompted an apology from FBI Director Christopher Wray.
On behalf of the entire FBI, I want to begin by saying to the brave women who testified here this morning, I'm deeply and profoundly sorry to each and every one of you.
The hearing was prompted by a scathing investigation by the Justice Department's Inspector General Michael Horowitz, which uncovered widespread and dire errors by FBI agents which allowed Nassar to continue to abuse at least 70 more victims before he was finally arrested. The Inspector General referred both former agents for prosecution, but the Justice Department declined to bring charges against them. In congressional testimony on Tuesday, Deputy Attorney General Lisa Monaco told lawmakers she was outraged to learn about the Inspector General's findings and said she wants the survivors to, quote, understand how exceptionally seriously we take this issue.
I'm here today because I believe Facebook's products harm children, stoke division, and weaken our democracy.
Explosive testimony from a former Facebook employee turned whistleblower. Frances Haugen, a former product manager on Facebook's civic misinformation team, told a congressional committee on Tuesday that Facebook knowingly amplifies divisive and harmful content, choosing profit over safety, and that Facebook has sought to keep its operations confidential amid mounting scrutiny, especially in regards to its effects on children.
Congressional action is needed. Today, no regulator has a menu of solutions for how to fix Facebook, because Facebook didn't want them to know enough about what's causing the problems.
Lawmakers in both parties pounced.
Its only real principle is profit.
Mark Zuckerberg's going sailing and saying no apologies.
Accusing CEO and founder Mark Zuckerberg of pushing for higher profits, while being cavalier about user safety. And they demanded that regulators investigate whistleblower accusations that the social media company harms children and stokes divisions.
Our children are the ones who are victims. Teens today, looking at themselves in the mirror, feel doubt and insecurity. Mark Zuckerberg ought to be looking at himself in the mirror.
In the end, the buck stops with Mark. There is no one currently holding Mark accountable but himself.
Haugen said Facebook had also done too little to prevent its site from being used by people planning violence, saying its focus on metrics trumped ethical concerns. Facebook was used by people planning mass killings in Myanmar and the January 6th assault on the U.S. Capitol by supporters of then-President Donald Trump, who was determined to toss out the 2020 election results.
Facebook can change, but is clearly not going to do so on its own. My fear is that without action, divisive and extremist behaviors we see today are only the beginning. What we saw in Myanmar and are now seeing in Ethiopia are only the opening chapters of a story so terrifying, no one wants to read the end of it.
Haugen says Facebook has the tools to de-emphasize divisive content, but chooses not to use it to keep engagement high.
Facebook knows that content that elicits an extreme reaction from you is more likely to get a click, a comment, or reshare.
A Facebook spokeswoman disputed Haugen's knowledge of the company's inner workings, adding, quote, "We don't agree with her characterization of the many issues she testified about." The Senate hearing reflects the rising anger in Congress with Facebook amid numerous demands for legislative reforms, with senators warning that Facebook faces a reckoning akin to other industries like big tobacco.
It was Turnaround Tuesday on Wall Street as investors went shopping for the high-growth tech names that were battered the day before. The Dow jumped 311 points, the S&P 500 gained 45, the Nasdaq surged 178. Nick Colas is co-founder at DataTrek Research.
The market's clearly trying to figure out what a post-pandemic recovery economy looks like, and that is somewhat of a tortured process, if you will. We don't know how much tech should be a part of that. We don't know how much energy should be a part of that. And right now, the market's really fighting in between those two forces to figure out what does the economy look like going forward.
Upbeat economic data helped improve the tone. The massive services sector continued to expand in September, according to the Institute for Supply Management. And in corporate news, PepsiCo beat sales forecasts thanks to solid sales of its higher-priced snacks and drinks. The company also raised its full-year sales forecast. But PepsiCo warned that it will likely raise prices again early next year as it looks to offset supply chain shortages, ranging from the lack of Gatorade bottles to a shortage of truck drivers. Shares of Pepsi finished higher on the day. Facebook was on the mend one day after its platform suffered a total blackout. The social network blamed the outage, which also impacted Instagram, WhatsApp, and Messenger, on a mishap during routine maintenance. The stock was also in focus as a whistleblower testified before Congress. Shares of Facebook climbed 2%. Crude oil prices hit a 3-year high in the U.S. OPEC Plus decided not to open the spigot any more than previously planned. It stuck to plans agreed to in July to boost output by 400,000 barrels per day for each month through April 2022. Crude oil prices settled just shy of $79 a barrel in U.S. trading.
As tensions mount between China and Taiwan, U.S. President Joe Biden has spoken on the phone to Chinese President Xi Jinping. Biden told reporters on Tuesday that both leaders had agreed to keep to the Taiwan agreement, an apparent reference to Washington's policy of recognizing Beijing rather than Taipei, on the expectation that the future of Taiwan will be determined by peaceful means.
I've spoken with Xi about Taiwan. We agree we'll abide by the Taiwan agreement. That's what we are. And we made it clear that I don't think he should be doing anything other than abiding by the agreement.
China claims Taiwan as its own territory and has not ruled out the possible use of force to achieve unification. The island, which broke away from the mainland in 1949, rejects Beijing's claims and has its own democratically elected government. Over a 4-day period beginning last Friday, Taiwan reported close to 150 Chinese Air Force aircraft entered its air defense zone. The show of force from Beijing has been condemned by Washington and Taipei. Taiwan's defense minister said on Wednesday China will be capable of mounting a full-scale invasion by 2025, adding that relations were at their worst level in more than 40 years.